Hello and welcome to another timeless video. Today we're checking out this blue-black combo deck that has two very different win conditions, but they both rely on the deck not having any actual lands in it. One of them you might be familiar with, Goblin Charbelcher, a 4-mana artifact that activates for 3 mana, revealing cards from our library until we reveal a land card, and then we get to deal that much damage to the opponent. Because we don't actually have any land cards in the deck, we get to deal often 50 plus damage to the opponent to win the game on the spot. And that's thanks to all the lands in our mana base not actually being lands. Instead, they're these dual-faced cards that are spells on the front side and then lands on the back. So if we go through the deck with Charbelcher, they don't count as lands, but they can still be played as lands, often untapped as well at the cost of 3 life, thanks to the new ones from Modern Horizons. So that's how we can still hit our land drops to actually cast our spells, cast our Charbelcher, and win the game. And the same is true now also for Balustrade Spy, a 4-mana 2/3 flyer. When it enters, we can target ourselves and then mill cards from our library until we hit a land card. And again, because we don't have any lands in the deck, we will end up milling our entire library, which sounds a little dangerous, because if you end up drawing from an empty library, you lose the game, but that's where Darksteel Colossus comes in handy. You could also substitute this with Progenitus or with Worldspine Worm, but Darksteel Colossus we can realistically still cast in this deck as an 11/11 Trampler with Indestructible, and the important part, if Darksteel Colossus would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal it, and then shuffle it back into its owner's library instead. So if we mill our entire deck with Balustrade Spy, Colossus will get shuffled back into our deck, so now our deck is just a single Darksteel Colossus, and in the meantime we'll also have milled a few interesting cards, such as Creeping Chill, which will make the opponent lose 3 and we gain 3, and that in turn will get back all 4 copies of Silver Smote Ghoul, and that in turn will also get back 4 copies of Prized Amalgam. So all of a sudden we have 8 of these 3-powered creatures on the battlefield after having drained the opponent for 12, so that's usually enough to win the game on the following turn, and we better make it count because we only get 1 turn to attack with all of those creatures. So that's our game plan in a nutshell. We've already covered all the dual-faced cards here, which we're mostly playing as lands. Occasionally you can maybe sink into Stupor one of the opponent's spells or bounce a creature back, and the Fell the Profane can maybe remove an opposing creature. Trawler can also act as Graveyard Hate, but we're mostly playing those as lands. And then rounding out the deck, of course, Dark Ritual is incredibly important, giving us 3 black mana, so that's how we can potentially win the game on turn 1 if we draw multiple Dark Rituals and then get to play one of our 4-drops. And then we also have some Disruption with Thoughtseize, great against other combo decks, and in a pinch we could also discard our own Darksteel Colossus to shuffle it back in case we need to win with Balustrade Spy. And then Mana Drain, another very busted card in Timeless, countering a spell and then giving us additional mana equal to its mana value on the following turn, so that can also help ramp out our various 4-drops. And then we also have 4 copies of Cold Steel Heart, often going for blue, so we have double blue for Mana Drain, so that's another way to maybe ramp out our 4-drops ahead of schedule and fixing our colors in the meantime. And then of course the one-off restricted Demonic Tutor can also help us find our various win conditions, or maybe a Dark Ritual if we need to speed things up. So the deck is pretty straightforward. Could also consider playing some Narcomoebas to have additional 1/1 flyers to get from our Balustrade Spy, but we don't want to dedicate too many cards to the Spy plan, since we still need the Charbelcher plan to work out if we draw that instead. So then having enough other ramp cards and lands to play is also important. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play with a triple Prized Amalgam opener. That's not ideal. Creeping Chill. Yeah, this is an easy mulligan. Still have double Creeping Chill, 2 lands, and a Cold Steel Heart. So this hand would be trying to win with Charbelcher, but it's not particularly fast. We don't have a Dark Ritual. And now we just have lands and a Mana Drain. Might still be our best hand so far. And then Creeping Chill can go, and maybe the Prized Amalgam as well. And then we essentially keep 4 lands Mana Drain. Can maybe use the Mana Drain mana to cast. I guess we would have to play the Teachings to have double blue. So yeah, it's not great, but I'll try it. And then if we draw into one of our win conditions, we might be alright. Opponent's blue-red. Mills a Brainstorm, there's a Dark Ritual. So now we just need our Charbelcher or the 4-mana Vampire. Expedition map, so maybe it looks to be a Lotus Field combo deck. Keep up mana drain for now. Price Amalgam can wait. Might be able to use the Trawler, so I'll just play this tapped. If our opponent has their own counter spells, we'll maybe have to wait to set up our win condition with mana drain backup, or wait until we draw Thoughtseize. Opponent does indeed search up a Lotus Fields. So that happens. And there's a Spy. So should be able to play the Spy with mana drain backup in case our opponent has some free counter spell. And then target ourselves. Still have mana drain up in case they can win the game next turn. So we'll get back 4 Silver Smote Ghouls, and then in the opponent's end step 3 more Amalgams. And with Darksteel Colossus being our next draw step. So let's see if our opponent can survive somehow. Triple blue for Vizier, so that's +1 mana. So our opponent needs to pretty much storm off through a mana drain. Cycle another Vizier, cannot counter that one. So they have 5 mana, and they can still play a lane for turn. Another Vizier, alright. So 6 mana, potentially 7. They might have cards like Hidden Strings in hand as well. Steam Vents untapped for additional mana. So 7 floating for Underworld Breach. So they would get back Vizier, they cannot cycle. Expedition Map and Brainstorm are both fine, so I don't think we need to fight over the Breach right now. Hidden Strings. Now that's starting to become a problem, since that makes mana. If I counter it, they can still get it back from the graveyard. Yeah, I guess we'll let that go. So their opponent makes more mana. But they still need a way to keep milling cards as well, to keep fueling the Underworld Breach. And Brainstorm is fine. They may not have a shuffle effect left since they've already played a lane for a turn. Their win condition could be something like Grape Shot, and if they just Grape Shot my Silver Smote Ghouls, then they may be able to survive, and then I'll end up decking. So Bauble sees the Darksteel Colossus. Five mana. If they go for Pour Over the Pages, we'll counter it. It's going to be another Consider. That's okay. And there's a Stifle, doesn't counter Mana Drain at least. It's used to counter the Lotus Field trigger, as well as maybe opposing fetch lanes. Could also be used to counter a Charbelcher activation. Alright, so Hidden Strings. It's gonna untap 2 lands. I think we let that resolve still, since they could easily have another one in hand, so countering it doesn't really do much. If they cast something like a Leer, that might also be worth fighting over. So I'm being patient on the mana drain. In hindsight, countering Underworld Breach could have worked out. Alright, Brainstorm, so they don't have many cards left in graveyard now to use the Breach. Four mana. And a Bauble, that's fine. We're still drawing the same card. The One Ring. Alright, I'll counter that one. Otherwise they would have prevented the damage, and then we might end up decking, but that'll do it. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have Dark Ritual, but nothing to ramp into at the moment. So this might still be a mulligan. And this one seems better. We've got a Ritual to ramp out Charbelcher. And then one Teachings can probably go. So turn 2, we can Charbelcher. Could also go for turn 1 Thoughtseize, actually. Although that might delay activating Charbelcher if we don't find another untapped land. But yeah, if our opponent has their own Thoughtseize, I may regret not casting it turn 1. And our opponent on Show and Tell combo. So, Veil of Summer only protects from blue and black, so it doesn't help against Charbelcher. So Show and Tell is the scariest card. Next turn they could cycle Veil of Summer after I cast a Dark Ritual. And we found an untapped land, so that's perfect. So we can Ritual. And then our opponent has one turn to answer the Charbelcher. Sometimes these decks also play a Leyline of Sanctity, which would stop the Charbelcher, so then we need to win with our mill game plan, but didn't seem necessary right now. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have double Dark Ritual, but sadly no win condition to potentially threaten lethal on turn 1. So yeah, this is probably going to be a mulligan. Or we can keep just hoping to top deck one of our 8 win conditions. And then we're in a decent spot to leverage those. Still feels like I probably need one in my opener. We're facing Obosh, so it could be more of a burn deck. In which case, we can play some of our lands tapped to save life. It's definitely a close call. Maybe on the draw I would keep this. On the play without the extra draw step, we're maybe having to wait too long to find our win condition. This hand's probably not going to get there either. 3 lands, double Cold Steel Heart. None of our 4 drops. But on the bright side, our deck mulligans relatively well, since there's lots of cards like Amalgam that we don't mind putting on the bottom. Alright, we've got our Spy. We have 3 lands and a Cold Steel Heart, so yeah. Keep. So Amalgam certainly goes, and then Mana Drain versus Cold Steel Heart is kind of the decision, I think. Because we could cast a turn 2 Mana Drain, which then sets up Balustrade Spy. Yeah, I guess we'll try that since we're on the play. And then if our opponent has a discard spell for Spy, would I rather have Cold Steel or Mana Drain? Probably still Mana Drain. Could have also kept 2 lands, Mana Drain and Cold Steel Heart, but if we counter a 1-drop, then we may not have enough mana to play the Spy afterwards. It looks like a burn deck. And a turn 1 Ragavan, alright. So I guess if we draw, our opponent somehow exiles Darksteel Colossus, we could be in trouble. Otherwise, I'm countering pretty much any play they make. Opponent found a Cold Steel Heart. And I'll fight over it. Now if our opponent has some life gain, they could potentially interfere. Might be worth it to Thoughtseize, even though it's going to cost me 5 life, so it would be a 10. But we're also going to gain a ton of life of Creeping Chills. So it seems safe enough to Thoughtseize first. Just to make sure the coast is clear. Blood Moon is not going to matter anymore, so I'll take Fury. And Fury would have been pretty good at stabilizing the opponent here. since it can take out several 1 toughness creatures. So we're gonna target ourselves. And drain you for 12. Get back triple ghoul and quadruple amalgam. So unless our opponent comes up with a board wipe or a way to mill me, we should be alright. Definitely blocking Ragavan. I guess just removal for Spy lets Ragavan connect, which in turn exiles Colossus. So they actually didn't need much to still win here. So yeah, definitely had to Thoughtseize when we had the chance. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. This hand is just a black source away from a turn 2 win with Charbelcher, but as is, we only have 1 land that doesn't cast any of our spells, so probably have to ship it back. And this time we have still a very good hand. Bottom a Creeping Chill, and then, yeah, we still have a turn 2 Spy, which is often good enough. Wow, now we can do a turn 1. Okay. Don't often get the chance to do it, so... A little bit short of Charbelcher activate, but Spy should still get there. Unless our opponent can mill me for 1. And our opponent scoops it up. Awesome. Turn 1 win. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have no win condition. Can play turn 2 Cold Steel on blue to keep up mana drain after Thoughtseizing turn 1. But then we're just kind of hoping to top deck something to win the game. It's not a terrible hand, because we do have plenty of interaction. But if we don't have any of our win conditions in the top couple cards of our deck, we're just going to be spinning our wheels for some time. So I think I prefer being more proactive, even though a Lur's deck could have some discard spells. And yeah, this seems a bit better to me. Got 2 of our win conditions. Can maybe ramp with mana drain if we find another blue source. And with a Dark Ritual we could Spy on turn 2. Opponent on what looks to be a red-white energy deck. Alright, so that's going to be our second blue for mana drain. So that can maybe ramp us into the Spy. Opponent's got a Raptor in the meantime. Hitting Ajani, so opponent's off to an excellent start. Multiple blockers, gaining a life, so it could be tricky to win the game on the spot with a Spy. So we might have to aim for Charbelcher instead. Although if we play Charbelcher, our opponent can also potentially remove it with the Static Prison. But for now we can just play tap land and pass. And then definitely gonna mana drain here. So we're gonna be 1 short of Charbelcher activates. But yeah, going for Spy is still a little bit sketchy. So we would drain them for 12 down to 7. And then 4 creatures realistically that can go unblocked, but never mind, we drew Dark Ritual. So now we just get to Charbelcher activate, and that's going to be the much safer line. Alright, just need to top deck Dark Ritual, and that's an easy win. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have 3 lands. Thoughtseize Charbelcher. So it's pretty slow, and also relatively light on interaction. I'll take Mulligan. This one seems a little bit better. Could use a 3rd land, but we can double Thoughtseize in the meantime. So this is gonna hurt. And against a burn deck, no less. Alright, so can potentially take Eidolon next turn. And we're not going to be casting too many cheap spells. So probably take the only 1-drop they have at the moment. And we found Dark Ritual, excellent. So if I play Cold Steel Heart, next turn we'll have enough mana to cast Charbelcher, not yet enough mana to activate it. So yeah, we could Dark Ritual out the Charbelcher right now, don't expect any removal for it. And then we just need to find a untapped land to win the game next turn. Alternatively, I can Thoughtseize the Eidolon, then our opponent's hand doesn't do much. And we can play this tapped, and then we can maybe play it a little slower. Yeah, I mean, if I go to 12 here, let's say our opponent has a Lightning Bolt. We're still pretty far from dying. So I think I'm alright just ritualing out the Charbelcher, and then with an untapped land we win the game next turn. If not, Cold Steel Heart can set up the win on the following turn. So they need a pretty specific answer. And then we're not going to be triggering the Eidolon too much. Opponent seems to have a free spell in hand. Maybe a Mishra's Bauble that they should have played before the Eidolon. Or a Fury, which doesn't have many great targets. Alright, so we're gonna take 2. So, possible we die next turn to a flurry of burn spells. If they attack, Lightning Bolt doubles Cure, or just triples Cure the critics, could do it. Alright, Spikefield Hazard. So, double Bolt plus an attack is gonna be 1 short. Static Discharge, that's not quite enough. And then next turn Charbelcher activates for the win. So despite facing the burn deck, it looks like we're the ones that are going to get to deal the most damage. Yeah, it does look like they have a Fury in hand, but Fury doesn't go face. It only damages creatures. And that'll do it. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have our one-off Demonic Tutor, 3 lands, Thoughtseize, none of our win conditions, but we can search one up. So this one's borderline. If I want to Thoughtseize turn 1, I'm gonna have to play the Teachings later, but we could still go turn 2 Cold Steel Heart, turn 3 Tutor, play tap land, maybe setting up a turn 4 Spy, or turn 3 Spy. We'll see. But I think we do want to lead on Thoughtseize. Opponent a blue-black control deck. Don't really care about Bowmasters. Snapcaster can get back maybe a discard spell or a counter. So I think that's the pick. So yeah, we're lucky that our opponent had mostly answers to creatures as opposed to counter spells. So right now, I think we just play Cold Steel Heart on blue. And then next turn we can Demonic Tutor for probably the Balustrade Spy. Just double checking that they can't mill us with the Sauron's Ransom. Dark Rituals, interesting. So it's possible we could now also go for Charbelcher, since we might have enough mana to cast Charbelcher and activate it. So there's fewer things that can maybe mess that up. Yeah, it seems reasonable. Opponent can flash in the Bowmasters. Alright, so if these 3 unknown cards include a discard spell or a counter spell, we could be in trouble. But I think I gotta go for it. And I suppose I could wait on Dark Ritual. I could just cast a Charbelcher, see if that resolves. Although I'm gonna have to take 3 damage first anyway. That resolves. By not casting Ritual first, I maybe give them the opportunity to bounce the Charbelcher if they have a way to do that. Maybe they've got the Brazen Borrower, for instance, so that's not a reason to Ritual first, but if they did have a counterspell, this way we get to keep the Dark Ritual to maybe save it for a future Charbelcher that we may top deck. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We've got a very powerful hand. It is only a 2-lander, but a 2-lander that can either mana drain on 2 or Ritual out a Balustrade Spy. So could only be better if we could maybe Thoughtseize on turn 1, but then we give up turn 2 mana drain potential. Opponent's playing with Lurrus as companion. And nothing turn 1. So yeah, I'll stick to the plan, just play this tapped. Can't really do anything else. And then if they have their own discard spell, at least we've got 2 win conditions, so they can only take 1. If we're afraid of counter spells, we can check out their hand with Thoughtseize first. So they don't have double blue. Now there are still counter spells for single blue, so I think we play it safe. And Thoughtseize first. Since we seem to have time to set up here. And a Spell Pierce. Alright, perfect. So next turn we could Thoughtseize again, if we feel like it. Opponent's got another Goyf, so this might be a Psychic Frog type of deck. Alright, so if I Thoughtseize, we can just check out that they don't have their own mana drain. If I pass with mana drain, it feels like our opponent's just gonna attack and keep up their mana. Could also Cold Steel Heart, our opponent gets to mana drain, put Lurrus in hand. Can maybe Thoughtseize it, or we can just combo if they tap out. So yeah, I'll just cast a Cold Steel Heart here on black, so we can potentially Thoughtseize, and then, if the coast is clear, Ritual out a Spy. That resolved. And a Bowmasters, that's totally fine. We wouldn't be drawing many cards to trigger it. And another Nether Goyf. So now their hand would need to be double counterspell. So I can take one with Thoughtseize and they still have one left for my combo. But if they cast it here, then we're safe to go for it. Double Drown, alright, so they actually did have 2 counter spells. And then, yeah, we currently have 2 Thoughtseizes going to the graveyard. So they made the correct move here by not countering. So now what's my play? Yeah, if I Ritual, they're just gonna counter it. But I guess that's alright, because then next turn we're just gonna play another Spy. I could also Ritual with mana drain backup, but that's not going to be incredibly useful. So yeah, I feel like we just Ritual and save ourselves the damage from playing this untapped. If they let this resolve, then I can cast a Spy without them being able to counter, so our opponent does drown. Play this tapped, and then we're only taking 6 damage here. And we still have all our win conditions in hand. Alright, opponent's gonna Thoughtseize, that's fine, can take 1 Spy. And the other one should win the game for us. Luckily didn't top deck or Colossus for turn, that would have been a disaster. But yeah, we definitely had some interesting decisions this game. Opponent had a decent amount of interaction. And yeah, even if they leave all their blockers back, we We should have enough to cross the finish line, and our opponent scoops it up. Awesome, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. We have 2 lands, Ritual, and then both Spy and Charbelcher, but no black mana to cast a Ritual, and if we don't find one soon, this hand doesn't do anything. So this might be a mulligan, sadly. Yeah, with a black source, this would be a snap keep. As is, I'm basically hoping to draw black source by at least turn 2 so we can spy. I mean, it's definitely still a hand that can win. The fact that our opponent doesn't have Companion means that they're more likely to be a combo deck themselves. So then, yeah, without interaction, I don't think I want to keep this. This time we have Thoughtseize, as well as Mana Drain. Yeah, this is a keeper. Now we will have to decide if we want to Thoughtseize on 1 or if we want to keep a Mana Drain on turn 2, since we only have the 2 mono blue sources, but we'll lead with a turn 1 Thoughtseize in case our opponent does the same. And our opponent turns out to be on a burn deck. Alright, that's potentially gonna hurt. I think we take Swiss Spear as their only 1-drop at the moment. And then we'll be playing these tapped for the most part. Opponent's gonna land an Eidolon, and then I'm gonna hope to counter another one. Now I could also play Teachings, because if we do Mana Drain an Eidolon, with the extra mana it's not like I can activate Charbelcher right away. So I may as well play this tapped. Next turn Charbelcher, does not trigger Eidolon, although we're still gonna take some damage off our own mana base. Opponent's gonna skewer, and then Eidolon. So, facing 4 damage, I need to take 3 damage. So yeah, then I'm just dead to Boros Charm. Casting Specimen also deals 4 to me. So yeah, we're kind of between a rock and a hard place here. Probably have to play this tapped. Try to Mana Drain the Boros Charm, which still deals 4 damage to me. And then with the extra mana, what am I hoping for? If I top deck Ritual, I wouldn't be able to cast it. But I guess an untapped land, yeah, also doesn't do it since I will be at 2. So I don't think we can win anymore. Creeping Chill is a way to gain life if we just cast it, but it's not gonna give me more time to set up. I'll line up the stage resolves. So if I counter the other light up, we die to the Boros Charm. So I kind of have to hope they hit another light up the stage. So I can counter that, and then with 3 mana we can actually Charbelcher activate. But our opponent hit a Lightning Helix. You have the cards came out in a slightly different order, maybe we get there, but yeah, now I can Creeping Chill to gain 3, opponent Helix's end of turn attacks, and then Boros Charm is lethal. Although I guess they cannot cast both because of their own Eidolons, so Creeping Chill might actually keep us alive. So our opponent does stay alive thanks to the Helix, but now they cannot cast another spell. Or they die to the Eidolons, so we can actually just cast another Creeping Chill for the win. Wow, what a strange game. But yeah, the Eidolon actually hurting the opponent more than it hurt us. And that does it. Wow, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have Balustrade Spy, 2 lands, Cold Steel on blue, won't be able to Mana Drain yet, but we can tutor for another Spy if necessary. So our hand's definitely not perfect. We have little in the way of interaction facing Lurrus, so they might have their own counter spells or discard spells. but I think the hand's still functional. And then the plan is likely to play Cold Steel on 2. Could also end up tutoring for a Dark Ritual. But I imagine our opponent's gonna have an answer to the Spy, so we might need to find another one. Arid Mesa, so could be an energy deck. Could also still be a burn deck. Turn 1 Ragavan. Alright, Ragavan can sometimes be scary if it can get rid of our Darksteel Colossus, for instance. So I could Demonic Tutor, get Dark Ritual, next turn cast Spy. But then we're only going to have the one blocker versus Ragavan, so then if our opponent removes the Spy, they can just exile the Colossus and we lose. So what's the alternative? And get a Charbelcher and try and win with Charbelcher in one turn. Yeah, it's tricky. Or we can just Cold Steel on blue, and then I could even tutor for a blue land next turn if we don't draw it, so we can keep a mana drain and maybe take it a little slower. Yeah, odds of our opponent having an answer to a 2-3 are pretty high. So we'll start here. Yeah, this is a situation where maybe having a couple Narcomoebas in the deck that you can mill to generate additional blockers could be useful. Opponent hit a Creeping Chill, so we're down to 2 Creeping Chills in the deck. Guide of Souls is fine. And Prison or Cold Steel Heart, alright. Can also be a good answer to Charbelcher if we don't get to activate it right away. Found an Amalgam. So, yeah, I guess we're down to just Demonic Tutor for Dark Ritual at this point, and then hope we can Spy for the win, but yeah, don't have incredibly high hopes just because of the Ragavan. But I don't see any better plays we can make. Ragavan hit a Silver Smote, so we'll still have 3 Silver Smotes, double Creeping Chill, triple Amalgam. So our opponent's going to be at 9. Facing 3 Amalgams, 3 Ghouls. Hopefully that's enough. I guess now with the Janny they gain 2 as well, and generate 2 more blockers. So that does make a pretty big difference. And again, if they have removal for Spy, we also lose.
Fight beside me, brother.
Found a Teachings. I don't think that changes anything. Just gotta go for it here. Small chance we can still cast Creeping Chill, although never mind, I guess we're not drawing a land. Know that for a fact. So we're dead to removal on Spy, and our opponent may still be able to survive the incoming attack. So we were between a rock and a hard place. So it looks like our win streak is finally going to come to an end. Maybe going for Spy a turn sooner would have worked out, but then we know about Static Prisons, so that exiling the Spy actually would have won them the game. Opponent has another Ajani, so Ajani can transform, and they can deal damage to the Spy as well. Opponent makes a token, 5 damage to the Spy, and then Ragavan exiling Colossus is game. So yeah, we weren't even close to dealing 14 next turn. Yeah, the energy matchup is usually pretty good for our deck since they have little to no interaction for us. But cards like Static Prison on Charbelcher can potentially mess us up, and then Ragavan exiling the top card can do so as well. Alright, so get back Amalgams, but we're just gonna draw from an empty library here. Nothing we can do in upkeep. The Amalgams triggering the remaining Amalgams as well. but you can only get one back. And it looks like our opponent has more interaction here as well. Alright, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have 3 lands, Ritual Charbelcher, yeah, that looks good. And we can Thoughtseize on 1. I think that's worth it, just to take away opposing interaction. And then I can still Ritual out Charbelcher on 2, even if we're not guaranteed to activate it on 3, at least we'll have it in play, in case our opponent has their own discards or counterspells. So let's see what you're working with. And looks like Show and Tell. And sure, I'll take the Brainstorm. Both their lands enter tapped, so our opponent's hand's pretty slow. But now I feel confident that we can just Ritual out the Charbelcher. And then there's not a whole lot our opponent can draw to answer it. Maybe Boseiju can blow it up, but they would also need an untapped land, so their 2 draws would need to be untapped land and Boseiju exactly. Otherwise they can maybe assemble the team to find a Boseiju, but even then they might be a little bit short of actually channeling it, so... And yeah, so far we haven't seen any Leylines of Sanctity, which are not always a staple in the Show and Tell decks, but maybe 1/3 of them will play it. And if they have it in hand, it does stop our Charbelcher plan, but then we can still fall back on our Balustrade Spy. Opponent does have a blue mana up, possible they have another Brainstorm, or maybe a Stifle, although that's only a temporary solution. Did not draw the untapped lands, so opponent does get another turn to maybe answer the Charbelcher. So now if they top deck Boseiju, we still have a game on our hands. Possible they have a Spell Pierce as well here, which was a reason to get the Charbelcher in play while we can. But nope, our opponent scoops it up, so they're not even taking their draw step, when I'm pretty sure their deck is running Boseiju, but I'll take it. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We have Colossus in our opener, which is not ideal, but we don't really care if we can win with Charbelcher. And we even have Dark Ritual and a Mana Drain we can cast on turn 2. Opponent doesn't have companions, so they might have their own counter spells or discard. But I think we try it still. Turn on Deathrite. Doesn't really stop us. I guess it can mess up our graveyard synergies a little bit. But yeah, we won't be able to go for the Spy because we don't have Colossus in the deck anymore. So I think we're just on keep up Mana Drain, hope to counter something juicy. And then there's a chance we can already Charbelcher activate next turn. Opponent seems to be on Elves, so we could see more Elves, of course, as well as Natural Order, but they didn't have a fetch land for Deathrite to make additional mana. So Leafcrown Visionary, if I counter that, we go up 2 mana next turn. So then I would need to draw an untapped land in order to activate Charbelcher, otherwise it still may be vulnerable to a Boseiju. But I think it's worth going for. Most of our lands are untapped. And there we go. So, a Ritual, play Charbelcher, and activate. Sweet. So yeah, having the multiple angles of attack is nice, in case we draw our Colossus, or in case our opponent has some form of graveyard hate. So overall, I'm quite impressed by the deck. We went on quite the winning streak until we just ended up losing to the Boros Energy deck, which I think is a winnable matchup since they don't have a ton of interaction, so we just need to worry about maybe a Ragavan exiling our top card if it's just Colossus left, or maybe a Static Prison slowing us down or taking out Charbelcher before we get a chance to activate it. So those are the interactions you need to keep in mind. And then I'm mostly worried about opposing control decks that have access to both discard spells and counter spells, as well well as maybe other fast combo decks that could also maybe present lethal before we do, but that's where also Thoughtseize and Mana Drain can come in handy, giving us more tools against other combo strategies. So overall, the deck seems to have most angles covered. In the future, we might also get the Undercity Informer, which gives us another Balustrade Spy effect in the deck, so then we can maybe move away from Charbelcher and focus more on the Dredge synergies. Maybe we'll find a card to give the team haste out of the graveyard, which could also help, although I guess with our creatures entering tapped, maybe not so much. But there's definitely more cards we could see in the future to improve the archetype even more, but for now it seems like a very strong contender in the Timeless format. So that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.